another day.
Yeah, I'm glad you've brought it back to OpenAI because, as you yourself said, the race, it has been between America and China, but this is, of course, about more than these two countries. Toby, what does this mean for the democratization of AI and for access to it, these developments?
I think it's very good news. I think it's bad news if you had US stocks the last couple of days, although they'll probably bounce back. But absolutely brilliant news for the rest of the world, really, which is that not only is the AI race to be won, but the AI is going to be easy to be democratized. As Brian was quick to point out, very importantly, what is most significant about this model is not only that it was very cheap, not that it was cheap, but that it was open as well. You can download it. I have downloaded it myself for free and build upon it. So it opens the promise that countries around the world are going to be able to build their own models. And let's not forget, the other key component that we've touched upon is the data. Deepseek, it seems, were able to profit from OpenAI's data. We're going to be able to profit, all of us, from Deepseek's data and be able to build specialized models using our own high-quality data. So I think this is, for the planet, really good news. AI is going to be a force for good for all of us, not just for the tech billionaires in the US.
Yeah, on that point, Ray, something that we haven't touched on is, of course, like many other Chinese AI models, Deepseek is trained to avoid politically sensitive questions. How much of a challenge is Chinese government censorship? Do you think it is a challenge for its aspirations internationally?
Well, if you're offering it for free and it's an open system, I think that's part of the bargain, right? You're getting it free, but you're also getting the Chinese view of the world, right? And I think that's by design. So I think if users using that have to take that into account. But what Toby was saying is true, right? If you can download that onto your own machine, all you need are 4 CPUs or a GPU. It's actually pretty light. You can do that. People are going to work on stripping out the Chinese censorship as well. So there'll be models that'll be able to take that out and put that back into use. But what we are defining is really the fact that, we really need to democratize and decentralize this, but you also have to understand who's providing you that technology, right? If it's coming from the US, so have the US bias. If coming from China, have the China bias. And you're going to see that with other country-specific types of models that are out there. Every country is going to want to put their cultural constraint there, as well as responsible AI constraints, because everybody has a very different view of this. And so we're almost at this point where when we were in biotech and we're doing biotech research, like what kind of genetic research is okay? What is humanity okay with? And then we're going to see other bodies come into place trying to regulate where AI is at that point in time. But right now, it's the Canary Islands of AI. It's a free-for-all, especially in terms of trying to figure out how to get to the advancements as quickly as possible. And then, of course, society typically reels in all those different areas through regulation over time. So we're going to see that, and we'll see that curve just like we did with the internet.
And Toby, is that free-for-all good for the technology right now?
Well, I mean, a fundamental question comes back also to this open source, which is that if everyone can download the models, any restrictions that you might put in, whether it be about talking about Tiananmen Square or bioweapons, can easily be removed. So it is going to be more interesting, more difficult, more challenging to regulate if open source wins. Open source has many advantages, but there are also some challenges it throws up. The internet runs on open source software. It's been fantastic for building the internet. It looks, there's a good chance that open source will win the AI race as well. But then that does pose those fundamental questions, which is how do we ensure that it is used in responsible ways?
And Brian, we're coming to the end of our show. I'd like to get to a final question. Why is this race, the AI race, so important to both countries? What is it that's at stake?
From the Chinese side, there's an overarching judgment from amongst its leaders that the reason why the Soviet Union collapsed and fundamentally lost the Cold War was because it failed to unleash the sort of new productive forces of immense productivity and also harness their holy grail of technology. And that is why, from the point of view of the CPC, winning this race, even though it's not a war in their eyes, and they don't want there to be a war between the two parties, is of paramount importance. And from the States, of course, I think think Washington is still trying to grapple with the implications of a rising power in China, one that is far from being able to displace America, by the way, in so many ways. And yet, the fact that China has accomplished so much over the past 4 decades has clearly unnerved many in DC, and is a concern that if the Chinese are indeed standing level to level, shoulder to shoulder with the Americans, that a world order might be one that is unfamiliar to those who had enjoyed the dividends of the post-Cold War unipolar moment. So the way I see it as a philosopher come geopolitical strategist is I often think that both powers would benefit from recognizing that in the face of the risks of unbridled AGI and also unregulated AI, there is no winner from a geopolitical point of view. We all lose. And yet, will the powers that be come to realize that? Well, I can only stay cautiously optimistic. Thank you.
Ray, are you cautiously optimistic?
Oh, I'm cautiously optimistic in general. I think we're going to have a good arms race on AI. I think what's at stake here is really geopolitical influence. China is able to influence a lot of countries with their money, with their technology, and with their ability to develop those nations. The U.S. has not been paying attention to the geopolitical space. We've been asleep at the wheel for the last 4 to 8 years, and I think we're paying the price for that. And so this is a war on all fronts, kinetic, digital, and of course, you're going to see more as we get into space, as we get into the polar caps. So this is just one part of the overall U.S. International strategy. And I think you're going to see a much more activist president than we have in the past.
And just lastly, Toby, because Ray mentioned space, there are so many that are calling this a possible Sputnik moment, referring to the Soviet Union's successful launch of an artificial satellite orbiting Earth, I believe, in 1957. How do you see this event in the bigger AI race?
I think it's an important stepping stone for what is going to be the next industrial revolution. The last industrial revolution gave us in the West high quality lives, doubled life expectancy. I'm optimistic in the long term that we'll do the same for many more people on the planet. Although I must say I'm a bit pessimistic in the short term. It's going to be a pretty bumpy ride the next 5 or 10 years.
Gentlemen, it has been great to get all of your expertise on this very interesting topic. We really appreciate your